Hello, William Johnson here, and we are going to do another Conga tutorial back on the congas. So today we're going to talk about something a little different. How to practice, how to develop your skills on the congas. Now, some of the things I'm going to talk about today are applicable and relevant to any musical instrument, and quite honestly, could be related or could be used and adapted to just about any industry and field. Certain principles. So, getting into that, there are four how to practice developing skills on your congas. Now, I'm going to mention four things. I'm going to categorize this, and the first thing I want to say, even before getting into any of that, is there's really any way that's effective for you is the right way, as long as you're effective and you're reaching your goals. There's no particular one right way to practice. There's no particular one structure over another structure. Everyone's different. And so whatever it is that you're working on, whatever the context it is in which you play, that's in how you need to structure your practice. But one of the main ideas of this practice is because for years, people like myself, and I know there are many others out there, that really don't understand what practice really is. Unless you have been brought up from the time you were a child with some type of great advice or wisdom or formalized structured practice or lessons or training, or even went to a music college, a music school, or even had a great, robust music education within your primary to secondary schools. If you haven't had all that, however, then the very idea, culture, style, and the effect of practice might be something foreign to you. And also, there's this saying that many you may be familiar with, is that you don't know what you don't know. Well, for me, I came up more on the athletic side of things, running track and field and wrestling. So I understood when it came to practice and training, but when I became a musician and began to train as a musician or study as a musician, really I didn't, for some whatever reason, the world of athletics didn't correlate for me over to music naturally. So I had to go back and rethink about things and to bridge that. And as I began to do that, just like I would in the gym or out on the track, then once I began to take those principles and apply those principles into the music world, into this, or even when I was training as a jet mechanic or an aircraft mechanic, the principles of learning something, having a system, having a strategy, having a plan, not just necessarily being rigid, but actually having a strategy and a plan. Once I began to apply that, then my goals and my gains began to grow exponentially. So I'm just going to give you a template today. This is not the way to do it, but it hopefully will give you an idea if this is something that's new to you. If it's not new to you, perhaps it'll just be an extra tool in your toolbox, or perhaps it might be a resource for your students. I don't know. Regardless, here we go. 4 things that every conga player, or that, again, I hate to generalize, but I'm just going to do that for the sake of communication. But 4 things I'm going to mention, and then that every conga player should have and develop individually in order to increase their skills on the congas. Now, some of these categories will bleed into each other and the boundaries will become vague. So the first one is your timing, tempo, strong sense of timing and understanding timing. You know, here we're going to get into a little bit of theory, but understanding timing and tempo, being able to play within various time signatures, being able to keep a tempo, being able to manipulate a tempo, being able to understand it, that is crucial. It's very important. I mean, you're playing a rhythmic instrument. Yes, you're playing both a melodic and rhythmic instrument, but regardless, music is also about time, even if the time varies. Okay? So, practicing with a metronome. I have a Korg dual metronome and tuner here. When I was learning in increasing my time, sometimes I would bring a metronome with me, even in a car ride. And there are times where I would just listen to songs, but then there's times where I just turn the metronome on to whatever tempo and time signature that I was working on, and just let it play. And then just tapping the steering wheel or whatever else, but just constantly letting that click play and getting used to that. Really works well for time signatures that may be evading you. Okay, I'll get back to that in a second. Whether it's this type of metronome on your smartphone, which we'll use here in a moment to apply some of these practices, or my new current favorite, which is the Soundbrenner Pulse. It's important to practice with the metronome as much as possible. You don't have to do it all the time, but it is important to do it as much as possible. Number 2, technique. Just any instrument is going to have its various forms of technique. And what I mean by technique is tones, as well as articulation. How you form your hands and your body to play, your posture, where you place your hands, differentiating each note. Timing technique also has to do not only with that. Actually, I was getting ready to go into vocabulary when I was talking about technique, so let's just go there. Number 3, vocabulary. Vocabulary has to do with different traditions, rhythms, rudiments, exercises. Okay, whether it be a Afro-Cuban marcha, right? Or whether it be a funk go-go type of thing, or a rhythm that you gleaned from another percussionist, whether it's exercises, whether they're rudiments, whether they're single strokes, or whether they're double strokes, whether they're getting a good open slap or closed slap, bass note, whatever. Technique, working on that technique. That's number 3. So vocabulary, it's just like speaking or going to a bank, an ATM. You're not going to be able to withdraw anything out of the ATM if there's nothing in the bank account. So you need to increase your vocabulary, okay? Number 4, tuning. Not just tuning your instrument, but developing your ears. Tuning is a provocative subject that can be controversial. Heavily debated, whether or not it's a definite or indefinite pitch, whether or not the ear perceives it as truly within tuning the ability to tune the drum to certain pitches, or the human ear just perceives it as a pitch. Regardless, it needs to be tuned in something that works, whether it's subjectively working for you or for the music director or for the recording, for the band, whatever. It still needs to be tuned to something that works. One of the reasons why tuning is so mysterious and evades a lot, especially beginners, is because perhaps you have not developed your ear, or just not experimenting with bringing it way down, the tuning, or bring it way up in between, just experimenting. When you have multiple drums, experimenting, but listening. People that play another instrument, the symphonic or resonant, such as the guitar, the piano, or sing, will often have an easier time with this, especially if your ear is already developed to various scales, whether they be westernized scales, Middle Eastern scales, whatever. The important thing is that your ear is trained and developed to hear the difference in tones and pitches. If you sing and you can harmonize with other singers, you're probably gonna have an easier time with something like this. If you're not able to say, okay, someone strikes a piano on a C or a G, and you're able to match that and stay within tune, even singing or trying to find it, if you're able to do that, tuning is gonna be a little simpler for you. So what I recommend is listening to your favorite conga players, experimenting. Nowadays, with the advent of YouTube and the popularization of all the videos and the proliferation of all of the resources out there, you can listen to and find, it doesn't take long to find a track of just congas from someone that is your favorite, or a conga player that you admire. Listen to them. Listen to the way the congas sound. If he's playing on a conga and a quinto, try to emulate the way he has it tuned, especially if it's a good recording. Find a good recording and try to emulate that. Listen. If you don't get it, listen some more. Experiment, listen some more. Record yourself, listen back. If you think you've got it right, record yourself. That'll be the test. And then watch yourself and listen and see. So that you're just going to have to do by listening. Pick up another instrument. Perhaps just, you don't even have to pick up another instrument to really try to get good at it, but just to learn the various scales and notes, okay? Take voice lessons if you don't sing. That's another great way, because you'll be learning solfege, sight singing, matching notes and pitches. It'll be great for your ability to tune. The percussionists that I admire the most, that I have found in my experience that I admire the most, are also excellent at tuning their instrument and can make beautiful sounds out of the instrument, not just because of their articulation and their ability to play the drum, but also how they have it tuned. A well-tuned drum will make your work a lot easier. You don't have to do a whole lot to make it sound good if it's tuned well, okay? Now, having great technique will also allow you, though, to manipulate your way to find your way around on the drum, even if you don't have time to tune it up very well, or the humidity changes, or the room changes the tuning of the drum. Various pressures in the drum is going to change the overtones, and therefore it's going to change the way that the tone and the pitch sits within the rest of the aggregation, the band, the musicians around you. Okay? So those are the 4 things. Strong sense of timing, developing that, working on that, technique, increasing your vocabulary, and working on developing your ears. Developing these within a practice routine, a strategy through the days, through the weeks, through the months, through the years will help to develop your ability as a musician, as a conga player. Now, what does that mean as far as practicing and how to practice? What are some good ways to practice? Well, first of all, the importance of that is, for me, what I found is there were times where I was working on something, and let's say I was working on a rhythm. Let's say I was just right here. Let's just say I was playing. After a couple minutes, this starts feeling good, and it feels like I've been playing it for a real long time, when in reality it might have only been 30 seconds, 2 minutes, a minute, right? And next thing you know, I'm like, oh yeah. Next thing you know, I start doing different stuff. Before I know it, 15 minutes has passed and I'm doing all this other stuff, and I don't even remember what I started out, or I just wasted all that time because I only spent maybe 30 seconds or a minute, 2 minutes really working on something I'm trying to perfect, something that I'm trying to develop, but I ended up doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So focusing in the practice, okay? I've often heard drummers like Benny Greb speak about this, has a little DVD, and talking about practicing and developing your skills, various podcasts and whatnot. There's other artists who will say this. You'll find athletes who talk about this. Focus. Have a strategy, have a plan. When I go into the gym and I work out, what I used to do is would have a notebook before I go, or write down how many reps, how many sets, what muscle group I'm going to work on, because I want to have a strategy. I want to be able to pinpoint an issue, and I want to be able to work towards a goal or a gain. And it's also hard to see where your gains are if you don't have a plan or a strategy or something to look back. In the world of landscape and out there, when you leave your home, even in your home, we call these landmarks. Without a landmark, it's hard to tell where you're coming or where you're going or where you've come from, okay? So what does that look like? Well, here's a template of a way to practice, okay? And this is very important because this is what we talk about mastery training, or not just westernized classical, but developing your craft, all right? Mastery often camouflages hard work. So those drummers that you see that you may want to emulate, or you want to be like, or reach those goals, or have that ability and that skill, they're often somewhere working, not just shedding, playing a bunch of stuff and going in, because then you'll never really develop something that you don't have. You'll just keep playing what you already know. And so we don't want to work on what we already know. We want to gain a larger vocabulary. So one way to do it is, first of all, when you're about to practice, and you sit down, if you have time. Not everyone has a bunch of time, but when you have the time, sit down like you're not going anywhere. Just relax. You're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything. Grab your cup of coffee. Breathe in and out. Just chill for a minute, all right? Have that mindset. Not going anywhere, I'm not doing anything, as if I'm gonna be here forever. Even if it's only 5 minutes, trust me, that's often just 5, 10, 15 seconds that it takes to sit down, get your notebook, get your posture ready, get everything that you need so you're not constantly, oh, I gotta go get this, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom, do all that stuff, get it ready, get it out your system so you can just sit down and focus, okay? Now, I'll talk about those that don't have that time. I have children myself, so I understand you may not have that time. There's many other ways of practice. You want to create a lifestyle of practice. Talk about that in a second. So now, how does this look, working on different things? We talked about timing. So let's grab it. We grab our metronome, okay? I'm going to use my smartphone for this. Use my iPhone. Sorry for all you Android users out there. But I'm an iPhone person. All right. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to pull up my my Soundbrenner metronome. You can find it in the App Store here. And I'm just going to work on, let's just say, I'm going to keep it nice and slow.
1, 2.
And we're going to do a 4/4. Okay? So I'm at 86 beats per minute. And let's say, what I like to do is, let's say you have an hour. You might not have an hour, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break down 4 sessions of this practice in 15-minute increments. So 1 hour, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, then 30 minutes, 45 makes an hour. So even if you have 20 minutes, you can break it down like this. This is just one way to practice a couple different things in one day, okay? So now, what I'm gonna do is, the first thing I'm gonna work on is I need to warm up. Warm up before you even start stretching. But for the warm up, let's say I'll work on something that I am struggling with. It's a great way to practice. Warm up using the thing you're already having a hard time with, because you're gonna practice that later too, okay? But now you warmed up, so you're doubling up on it. All right, so let that for the next couple weeks as you're working on it be your warm-up, whatever your weekend. Let's say it's your ability to have even single rolls to the metronome, okay? So I'm going to click it on a tempo that I can do for at least my warm-up. Let's say my warm-up is 2 minutes, non-stop, 2 minutes, just to the metronome, just to the singles. 2, 3, 4. Notes in between, like eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then I can go double time. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Now, what's also important here is that you pick a tempo that you're not messing up every 30 seconds or so. It needs to be somewhat challenging, so you're focusing, but at the same time, not so challenging that every 10 seconds or so you're off the metronome. Because if you continue to do that, what you're actually doing is practicing messing up, okay? So you don't want to enforce bad habits, all right? So that's something that I gleaned years ago from my track coach in high school, who was also an Olympic level coach. Don't want to enforce mistakes, okay? So now, I've got that warm up. Let's say now the second part of my workout is we're gonna work on our technique. That was technique, but that was also a warm-up. So now the second part, let's say I'm working on a tone exercise. Got my metronome. I'm gonna work on the exercise bass, bass, open, open, close, close, slap, slap, okay? On the 1. Beep, boop, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to do that for 15 minutes. It sounds like a long time, and it is. If you've never done this before, it's challenging to work on one thing for that long, even 5 minutes. But that's the idea. And trust me, if you have not done this before, you'll see an exponential growth compared to your growth before. Where something might have taken you weeks and years before, this could take weeks or months depending on your ability and your commitment. So you can double time with that one too. Okay, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, which is actually not this is right on within the phrase, the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 1. Working with that metronome. Boom, second part is done. We did that. Now we're in the third phase. We are in the third part of our 15 minutes. So we had a warm up. Let's say we warm up 15 minutes. Then this exercise 15 minutes. Then the third part. Now we're gonna work on a rhythm. Okay. So let's just say marcha. Okay. The tumbao. All right. 2, 3, 4. And for 15 minutes, I'm right on the metronome doing this. Okay, so for the next 15 minutes, I'm doing that now. Okay, that one rhythm, no extra, nothing else. If that's a rhythm that you're working on to perfect, for the next 15 minutes, just play that rhythm. Okay, now the fourth and final might be, it could be one of a couple things. It could be incorporating your exercise or your warm-up, whatever riff that you're practicing it. If that's the exercise, the second phase, remember we did the bass open. You can now incorporate that with the rhythm for your fourth part of the practice, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the rhythm, I'm gonna practice the rhythm, and then every other one, 3, 4, 1, not this one, 2, 3, 4, then this one, 1, 2, on that one, then I'm going to do my singles. What I warmed up with, I'm going to incorporate that for a whole bar. And then go back into the rhythm. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 singles. Dot, 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 dot. Rhythm. 2, 3, 4. Let's try it. Now, that's slow, but you can develop speed by practicing slow, okay? Practicing at a rate where you're focusing on each note. Now, you can also practice, you don't have to come in on the first beat. Boop, beep, boop, 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 beep. You can set your metronome to the accent on the second beat and come in on the second beat, which means that your single roll will have to be shorter, right? Because you gotta come right back in on the rhythm on 1, 3, 4, rhythm. Rhythm. Here we go. 1, rhythm. Notice I didn't come in right on the first beat from the metronome. I came in on the second one. So you could practice that. You can come in on the end of, the upbeat of the first beat. So, beep, boom, come right in. 1 and. What, you could be 1 and.